Welcome back to MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things magic. In today's video, we are going to add the next 20 creature cards with a mana value of 2 into our Momir Vig Cube. What's up, MTG BC? That is the MTG Burgeoning community. Welcome back to another episode in our ongoing series, Momir Vig. If you are unfamiliar with the purpose of the series or just need a refresher, you can search in the description below for the link to MTG Burgeoning's introduction to Momir Vig. Additionally, in the description below, you can click the link to Cube Cobra and see the entire contents of the cube as it stands right now. So let's get to the next 20 cards with a mana value of 2 that are going to be added to our Momir Vig Cube. Card number 1, Mono Black, Heir of Falconwrath. We've got a 2/1 that allows us to discard a card to transform Heir of Falconwrath. We can only activate this ability once each turn. Each time we summon a creature card from the Momir Vig Cube, we must discard a card from our hand. We're going to be discarding a land card, of course, because our libraries are nothing but basic lands. So to invest 2 mana and a discarded land, we need to discard an additional land to transform Heir of Falconwrath from a 2/1 walker to a 3/2 flyer. For the mana investment of 2 and 2 lands in our hand, is it worth it? It might be. This is a format that's driven by combat. There are only creatures in this format, and each player's life total begins at 24. Investing that much resources in an evasive creature that can send an opponent's life total south 3 points every time it connects, it may well be worth it. Creature number 2, we have Heir of the Wilds, mono green 2/2 with Death Touch. It has the ferocious mechanic. Whenever this creature attacks, if we control a creature with power 4 or greater, Heir of the Wilds gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So as long as we have a creature a bit bigger than Heir of the Wilds, we will send it into combat as a 3/3 Death Toucher. Next card up, mono white, we've got Hero of Precinct 1. It's a 2/2. Whenever we cast a multicolored spell, we create a 1/1 white human creature token. In a format driven by creatures, any creatures that can create creatures are very, very valuable. So for the purposes of Hero of Precinct 1, although the summoning of the creatures from the cube is completely randomized, it's worth taking the chance that when we cast one of those spells, it's a multicolored creature that gives us a 1/1 white human creature token, a 2-for-1 if you will. It's going to be worth including Hero of Precinct 1, and maybe enough to hope that that is the creature you summon in your 2-drop. Creature number 4, we're going to go multicolored here. We've got High Priest of Penance. It's a 1/1. Whenever High Priest of Penance is dealt damage, we may destroy target non-land permanent. So this pretty much just either sits on the battlefield as the ultimate defense, or we send this into combat, possibly through political machinations, and if it's dealt combat damage and dies, then we're going to off one of our opponent's creatures. Creature number 5, as we hit the 1/4 mark, we have our first colorless creature to talk about. It's Hovermere, 1/2, flying, and vigilance. The evasion of vigilance is highly, highly valuable in a deck that is, in a format that is predicated on combat. Creature number 6, we have Hungry Lynx, 2/2 cat. Cats we control have protection from rats. At the beginning of our end step, target opponent creates a 1/1 black rat creature token with Death Touch. Whenever a rat dies, put a +1/+1 counter on each cat we control. There will be numerous cats sprinkled throughout the Momir Vig Cube. Will you summon enough of them to make Hungry Lynx valuable? Particularly because we are sending a rat to one of our opponents every round of turns. Next up, we have Hushbringer, a 1/2 flying lifelinker. Creatures entering the battlefield or dying do not cause abilities to trigger. Here we have the evasion of flying. We have the lifelink that allows our life total to tick upward while our opponent's life total ticks downward. Plus, we have the defensive capability that could actually hurt us as well, of ETB triggers not happening and death triggers. Hushbringer brings a lot on an investment of only 2 mana. Our first mono blue addition to this video, we have Iceberg Cancrix. It's an 0/4 snow crab, and whenever, it's a snow creature crab, and whenever another snow permanent enters the battlefield under our control, we may have target player put the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard. The 2 cards is not really going to be much of anything from a game state purpose because each player is playing with a library full of basic lands. However, the beefiness of an 0/4 blocker could really help to solidify the early turns and make sure that our life total stays as close to 24 as possible as we approach the mid to late game. Creature card number 9, another colorless edition, we have Ichor Claw Mirror. 1/1 with Infect. Now, Infect is one of those mechanics that could be extraordinarily valuable, particularly in a Momir Vig format where there are no instant or sorcery spells. Whenever Ichor Core Mirror becomes blocked, it also gets +2/+2. So if you're going to chump it with a 1/1, a 1/2, a 2/1, something like that, Ichor Claw Mirror is going to survive because it's going to be 3/3. Hitting the halfway point and another colorless edition, we have Immolating Soul Eater, a 1/1 with the red Phyrexian mana symbol. Each time we pay 1 red mana or 2 life, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn. Make sure you've got those mountains packed in your basic land library. Starting the second half, we have a mono red edition, the first of this video. It is Immolation Shaman, a 1/3 Viashino Shaman. Whenever an opponent activates an ability of an artifact, creature, or land that isn't a mana ability, Immolation Shaman deals 1 damage to that player. So those artifacts could be artifact creatures. So we have to keep that in mind, particularly because of Immolating Soul Eater is a nice example of that, because that will deal 1 point of damage if you're going to pay that 2 life or tap that red mana. Additionally, we have pay 3 and 2 red, and Immolation Shaman gets +3/+3 and menace until end of turn. So make sure, again, you have those mountains in that basic library, because you can create a 4/6 menace until end of turn that also acts as an impediment to activating abilities of creatures and some of those artifact creatures as well. Mono green, we have Incubation Druid as creature number 12. It's an 0/2 elf druid. We can tap to add 1 mana of any type that a land we control could produce. That's going to be nice because we'll be able to ramp ahead of our opponents and get more powerful creatures onto our side of the battlefield way ahead of curve. We can pay 3 and 2 green to adapt 3, which means if this creature has no +1/+1 counters on it, we can put 3 +1/+1 counters on it. And if it does have at least 1 +1/+1 counter, when we tap to add mana, we're going to add 3 mana of that type instead. Imagine the possibilities of being able to ramp out to the 8+ tier of the Momir Vig Cube multiple turns ahead of curve. That is game over if you can hit the right amount of mana, because you need double green in that library, or you need to find a way to get a +1/+1 counter on Incubation Druid. Creature number 13, we have Ink Fathom Witch, 1/1 with Fear, which means it can only be blocked by black or artifact creatures. We can pay 2 in Dimir colors, and each unblocked creature becomes 4/1 until end of turn. Study that text very carefully, because it does not say creatures we control. It just says each unblocked creature becomes 4/1 until end of turn. With Ink Fathom Witch on our side of the battlefield and the appropriate mana, make sure you have islands and swamps, we can pay that mana and have those little dorky creatures coming in for combat that are not blocked. Suddenly, each one of them are dealing 4 to an unknowing opponent. Creature number 14, we have Invisible Stalker. Yep, we had to do it. It's in the 2-drop, so it had to happen. 1/1 hexproof, can't be blocked. So if this gets onto the battlefield, it's going to take a while, particularly because we don't have any instant or sorcery spells. There are no equip spells. There are no auras. You may have to tap that 50 times, but it can't be targeted by spells your opponents control, and it can't be blocked. I'm sorry, that was number 14. This is number 15, my mistake. Iron Mirror, we have a colorless mirror. We're going to tap it. We're going to add a red mana to our mana pool. It's a 1/1. That is card 15, not Invisible Stalker. I will learn those numbers one of these days. Next up, mono green, we have Jade Mage. It's a 2/1. However, more importantly, we can pay 2 and a green to create a 1/1 green sapperling creature token. Notice we do not have to tap Jade Mage in order to do that. So make sure you've got those forest cards in your basic land deck, because any creatures that can create additional creatures to flood the battlefield in a format that's driven by creatures is overly coveted and ridiculously advantageous. We're returning to a mono blue, and this time we have Jeering Homunculus. It's an 0/4, and when it ETBs, we may go to target creature. So this has nothing but defensive purposes because it's a 0/4, so it's a nice beefy blocker in the early game, maybe all the way up into the mid game. And plus, it does have the one-time effect of goading a creature an opponent controls. And let's be honest, if we can get one of those troublesome creatures to attack that we need to have leave the battlefield because maybe it has activated or triggered abilities that are hampering the battlefield, Jeering Homunculus could really come through in the clutch. All right, next up we have mono red. We have Kargan Intimidator. It's a 3/1 human warrior. Cowards can't block warriors. We can pay 1 generic mana and choose one mode that hasn't been chosen this turn. Either Kargan Intimidator gets +1/+1, or target creature becomes a coward until end of turn, or target warrior gains trample until end of turn. So we could really use some, how we want to say this, combat shenanigans when we have Kargan Intimidator in play. Even there's a bit of a stretch that perhaps this could work in conjunction with one of our opponents attacking one of our other opponents, as long as those attacking creatures are warriors, because we can pay 1 and we can make sure that one of their creatures turns into a coward. All right, we have 2 creatures left. This is creature number 19. And it is Karizev Skyship Raider. It's a 1/3 legendary human pirate with first strike and menace. So it really has that great evasion of menace, and plus it has the first strike ability too. So if one of our opponents is trying to chump block Kari with a couple of creatures, we can make sure that the first strike can deal 1 point of damage to hopefully the toughness of one of their creatures at 1, and make sure that Kari can survive from the other creature blocking it. More importantly, however, is whenever Karizev attacks, we get to create a 2/1 red monkey creature. You know who it is, folks. It is Ragavan. Ragavan's first appearance right here from Ether Revolt. And when we create Ragavan, he comes into play tapped and attacking, and we exile the token at the end of combat. As long as we can safely send Karizev into play, and with that first strike and menace combination is a fantastic ability, we can continuously create Ragavan, send it into combat, hopefully deal additional combat damage. Again, this is an example of a creature that creates a creature, and it can do so over and over again as long as Kari can remain on the battlefield. All right, MTG BC, here we have creature number 20 of this episode, and it is Kazundo Blademaster. It's a 1/1 with first strike and vigilance. You gotta love that vigilance for the purposes of offense and defense. Whenever Kazundo Blademaster or another ally ETBs under our control, we may put a +1/+1 counter on Kazundo Blademaster. So just imagine that. He's going to come down as a 2/2. 2/2 first strike vigilance for the investment of 2 mana, and you better believe that there are a number of other allies sprinkled throughout the Momir Vig Cube. 2/2 first strike vigilance for 2 mana on turn 2. Yeah, that'll work every day of the week and twice on Friday Night Magic. And there you have it, MTG BC. 20 more cards into the Momir Vig Cube, this time with mana values of 2. Let me know which are your favorites in the comment section below. This is MTG Burgeoning, your channel for all things magic.